The legend of Achilles is one that's been told and retold over the millennia, since ancient Greece until today. Everyone knows his story, or do they? Beneath the tales of heroism lies a darker truth. Let's look at the 5 dark secrets behind the legend of Achilles. Number 5. His rage fueled a war. Achilles had every reason to hate Hector. In their legendary duel, Hector slew Achilles' close friend Patroclus, and Achilles swore vengeance against him. But their confrontation wasn't just about revenge. It was about pride. You see, before Patroclus died, he sent a message back to Achilles. The Myrmidons were on the run. They needed reinforcements, but Achilles was ignoring them. Why? Because he was mad. Agamemnon had taken Briseis from him, and Achilles refused to fight. This refusal is what led to Patroclus's death. If Achilles had been there, if he'd put aside his pride and wrath, perhaps he could have saved his friend. But instead, his anger became a catalyst for destruction, causing even more bloodshed. So when Achilles finally decided to rejoin the fray after Patroclus's death, it was with a rage that burned hotter than the sun. He slaughtered everyone in his path, including women and children, until he reached Hector, whom he dragged by his hair and chopped to pieces. Number 4. He showed no mercy to the living or the dead. After killing Hector, Achilles refused to give back his body to the Trojans for a proper burial, dragging it around the walls of Troy as a sign of his dominance. Later, he even taunted the gods to take pity on Hector and give him back his body. When King Priam came to beg Achilles for his son's corpse, Achilles showed no mercy, berating the old king for being a liar and reminding him of all the times Priam had deceived the Greeks. Even when Priam pointed out that he was a fellow king, an equal, Achilles wouldn't budge. It wasn't until Hermes, the messenger of the gods, arrived, telling Achilles he'd be rewarded by the gods for returning the body, that Achilles gave in. Now you might think this was an act of magnanimity, but the truth is Achilles had ulterior motives. He wanted to collect his reward from the gods. To him, the Trojans weren't worthy of compassion, and he felt no remorse. In fact, he took pleasure in their despair. When Zeus commanded Achilles to return the other Trojan captives, he ignored the order, refusing to release them unless he received more war prizes. He was, after all, the greatest warrior alive, so why should he show mercy? No. 3. His heel wasn't his only weakness. There are many versions of Achilles' heel story, but most agree that he was dipped into the Styx of the underworld, which made him invulnerable except for that one spot on his heel. But Achilles' heel wasn't his only weakness. He was also known for his incredible temper. Achilles would often lash out in anger, kicking people when they pleased him and beating them severely for minor transgressions. One time he kicked a wounded soldier simply because he crawled on the ground instead of walking. Another time, he threw his drinking cup at Automedon for not pouring his wine properly. And yet another time, he whipped his horses for no apparent reason. This hot temper not only made him unpopular with his comrades, but also endangered him. During the Trojan War, Achilles was tricked into returning to battle by his rage. Paris shot an arrow at the Spartan king Menelaus, who ducked just in time. The arrow hit Achilles' heel, and he was forced to limp away from the battlefield in pain. Had Paris aimed for Achilles' head instead, he may have killed him right then and there. But sometimes Achilles' weaknesses got the better of him, like the time he allowed his rage to overcome him and slay a fellow Greek. Number 2. He defied the gods. Achilles was notoriously arrogant. Once he even boasted that he was faster than the wind, prompting Poseidon to send a strong wind to whip around Achilles during a race, humiliating him in front of the other Olympians. Achilles also defied the gods when he decided to kidnap Thetis' sister, Alcyone, and force her to marry him. Now, you may ask, why did he do that? Well, you see, Thetis had been warned by an oracle that she would give birth to a son who would be a great warrior, but he would die young. So she threw her baby boy into a river to be raised by a mortal king. And as fate would have it, He grew up to become the greatest warrior of the Trojan War. But now, Thetis wanted to make sure no one else could claim her son's life. That's where Alcyone came in. By marrying her sister, Achilles would become related to all the other gods, and therefore no god could harm him, right? But Zeus wasn't having it. He sent an eagle to snatch Alcyone away from Achilles. And when he tried to stop it, lightning struck him down, knocking him off his feet. Achilles may have been the greatest warrior in Greece, but here he was on his knees before the gods, begging them to forgive him. Sometimes pride comes before the fall. And speaking of falls, Achilles suffered one of the greatest in all of Greek mythology, which brings us to number one. Number one, his death was foretold. We all know how Achilles met his end. He was shot in the heel by Paris's arrow and died within minutes. But here's the thing. Achilles knew this was going to happen. You see, long before the Trojan War, there was an oracle at Delphi who foretold the great deeds Achilles would accomplish, but also the price he would pay for them. Specifically, the oracle said that if Achilles stayed in Troy, he would live a short but glorious life. But if he left, he would live a long but inglorious life. Achilles, with his usual arrogance, decided he wasn't afraid of dying young. He chose glory over a long life. The problem was, he didn't tell anyone he was leaving, not even his mother. He just packed up and went home. But then Patroclus arrived, bringing news that the Greeks were losing badly and begged Achilles to come back and help them. Now, Achilles wanted to help his friends, but at the same time, he was scared. The oracle's words echoed in his ears. What if he died? Would his mother be proud, or would she mourn him? Achilles struggled with this decision, but ultimately he chose glory again, returning to the front lines to help the Greeks win the war. He fought bravely, slaying Trojans left and right, but it cost him his life. He was just 41 years old when Paris's arrow found its mark. Maybe if he'd listened to the oracle and stayed home, he would be alive today. But then again, maybe not. After all, prophecies are never set in stone. Achilles chose his own destiny. He could have lived a long, happy life with his son Neoptolemus, but he chose glory instead. And in doing so, he became a legend that will live on forever. Well, folks, that's all the time we have for today's episode. Thank you so much for joining me, and I hope you learned something new. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to like and subscribe so you never miss an upload. Until next time, goodbye.